So if we're to sum up in a few words, what is it your dad was famous for?
Well, my dad was famous for not the UFO, but for his work within the government behind the scenes. And the book was never meant to be. My dad was writing his memoirs, and I ran a small business at that time in marine electronics, and he would sit at the desk and take the phone calls while I'd be out working on the yachts. And sometimes it was really funny. President Reagan would call him and he'd stand at attention behind the desk. But
so you had famous calls coming in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was number one for several presidents on Russia. And like one of the KGB after the wall came down said my father knew more about, the KGB said my father knew more about them than they did, so he was many times called into action even in his retirement. So yes.
But if Einstein was working on the Philadelphia experiment, for example, where did Einstein's theories come? Where did those ideas come from? Were they from Einstein?
Yes.
Or were they from reverse engineered technology plus Einstein?
They were from Einstein, but to implement it was from reverse technology.
So there must have been crashes prior to 47.
Yes, there were. The Germans had a crash, and my dad was in charge of Operation Paperclip for Eisenhower that brought the German scientists here. They brought the technology with them.
So the Germans,
from their crash.
So the Germans,
timeline before Roswell 47.
Yes, and America must have got hold of some of these secrets.
All of them.
Kathy, you were telling me that this is one of your favorite artifacts in the museum, but it looks kind of like a plain model rocket. Why is this so special?
Marty, don't let looks fool you. This model rocket was actually handcrafted by Dr. Wernher von Braun. As you well know, he was one of America's premier rocket scientists. But it wasn't until after World War II, when he came over with the paperclip scientists, that he began working with our scientists developing America's space program.
That had a very strong connection to this area too, correct?
Absolutely, because after World War II, when the paperclip scientists came over to America,
they were brought in through the East Coast. They actually stuck von Braun on a train by himself. And his cover was that he was a businessman from Geneva, and he wound up sitting next to an American who did business in Geneva and almost blew his cover. They were all illegal aliens at that time, so they took him across the border and then brought him back in. And that was when the Army really puckered, because they decided to walk away. Couldn't have stopped them.
They actually were brought to White Sands Proving Ground to begin their tests on the V-2 rockets here.
Now tell me briefly, who are the paperclip scientists? Why is that a term I should know?
Well, there were many scientists that were working with Germany at the end of World War II, developing things like the V-2. And when the war was over, Russians and Americans basically divvy up the scientists. So the scientists that America wanted to bring, they put a paperclip on their folder, and that marked them. From then on out, it was called Operation Paperclip, and they were the paperclip scientists.
But had he come across the Roswell incident prior to getting hold of that cabinet?
He didn't. He wasn't at Roswell.
So it was that compartmentalized the secret was?
Yes, it was. He was not at Roswell, but he was in. Stan Freeman said, MJ13. Your father said he was on that. It doesn't show his name. No, it doesn't, because he was the person that MJ reported to for Eisenhower. That's why Eisenhower called him in and said, what's this all about, Corso? So Freeman didn't have all the information.
MJ12, you mean?
MJ12, yes. My father was the 13th member of it, not on paper. He was the one they reported to. Colonel North's job, liaison. So Stan Freeman doesn't have all the information. It goes deep. My father at that time was in White Sands, New Mexico, preparing the 552 Missile Battalion to take the nukes overseas. And he was there during the Corona part. And they had taken the radars and moved them down to pencil beam. And from that, the first particle weapons were developed, which is still in White Sands. And we went to the museum, and the director of the museum was really amazed that my father was there and showed him the first particle weapon, which my dad helped develop, and helped develop Star Wars with Reagan. Or actually, Reagan called him and said, you see, the Cold War was not necessarily about the Cold War. It was about planetary infiltration from others. They were destabilizing our military bases, our nukes, and such like that. And not to go into another story, but that was a planetary defense system.
This delicate, information, they must have known it was from somewhere else.
Of course they did. Of course. That's why when the book was written, we had all these scientists come to the house. They said, we knew, we suspected, we knew, that there was something going on. Between 1960 and 1963, the world took off in development.
When did your dad give the kind of bits to the companies that they were working with? I mean, what
60 to 63.
60 to 63.
Yeah. I was going crazy there.
Yeah, I know, right? we changed realities.
Yeah. All of a sudden, time travel got involved. Here they are. Yeah, there's all your companies, and they all answered to my father. Or at least the people remaining there answered them. They have record of it. Still have record of it. On the other page, too. Now, why would they answer my father?
How did they answer him? What were the answers like?
We remember you, and yes, yes, we remember the allocations are here to every one of these companies. If you search their records, came in from R&D to do the work. That's available.
That's still on their books.
Yeah.
From all those years ago.
Yeah. Amazing.
Flying in the sky.
We were warned by the late Wernher von Braun in the years leading up to his death in 1977 that there were going to be a certain number of cards played on humanity, all leading to a culminating event. Now everything Wernher von Braun warned us about has come true, except for what he called the final card that they were going to play on us, and it has everything to do with UFOs.
The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids.
This new one you're tracking, how big?
It's what we call a global killer. Nothing would survive, not even bacteria.
An asteroid some scientists call a city killer came closer to Earth than the moon this week. The scary thing is that scientists had no idea it was coming.
Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. The way he said it to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he knew something that he was too afraid to talk about.
Just a few days ago, the Pentagon confirmed that a 2019 video of a UFO sighting is actually real. It was a UFO.
I had nothing to do. In fact, I had one, I remember the conversation very well. This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret sap, and they were telling me to stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic.
Correct.
The truth is, an extraterrestrial invasion is not possible within an enclosed Earth. None would fall for this delusion with scripturally clear and a spiritually correct understanding of the layout of our Earth and Yahuwah's universe. People who know the truth would quickly realize any extraterrestrials appearing in our closed system must then be demons.